Hello and welcome back to your favorite channel on security alliances. Today we are talking about NATO and why going back to basics might be key for 2030. For over 70 years, NATO has kept peace through collective defense, but with new challenges arising, it faces a big question: stay the same or adapt? So, in today's video, we will discuss enlargement and entrapment, issue slippage, and dependence on the US.
Today, NATO finds itself in a critical time facing disagreements, external threats, and new challenges. Our advice for NATO's future is clear: going back to the basics and focusing on the core principles of the alliance. But what are NATO's basics? Let's start at the beginning. Since its founding in 1949, NATO's main purpose has been deterrence and defense through collective security. Its core principles are outlined in Article 5 and Article 3. The 2022 strategic concepts reaffirms these foundations: deterrence, crisis management, and cooperative security, emphasizing unity, credible defense, and shared responsibility among members.
And now let's talk about strategy and why should NATO cut back on further enlargement. First, NATO should limit further expansion to prevent more tension with Russia, because Moscow sees NATO moving closer to its borders as a threat, which can lead to more aggression and greater reliance on nuclear weapons, which is exactly what NATO wants to avoid. Then, the addition of new members exposes the alliance to the risk of entrapment, which could drag them into unwanted conflicts, distracting them from their main priorities. And last but not least, enlargement weakens NATO's effectiveness and cohesion. The alliance is already struggling with the different priorities between its members. More members will make coordination and unity more difficult. So NATO should focus on strengthening its existing commitments. To stay cohesive and credible towards 2030, NATO should simply stop eastward enlargement, ensure all its members feel their spending obligation to share the burden, and finally strengthen their military and cooperation.
Another challenge for NATO is issue slippage. This concept refers to when an alliance starts focusing on new objectives, losing sight of its primary priority. Previously, it relied on military cooperation to keep peace and security in the North Atlantic space. As part of a realist approach on stability, power by military means seemed to be the only way to maintain relative peace. However, these past years have been subject to a change of paradigm with the advent of contemporary risks and matters such as hybrid attacks, environment, and women's rights. After 1991, NATO changed its agenda and risked losing focus on deterrence. Therefore, NATO seems not to be united anymore by military cooperation, but rather by the share of liberal and democratic values and norms. An example of NATO's issue slippage was in the 90s. NATO intervened in Bosnia and Kosovo to manage ethnic conflicts in non-member states, marking then a shift in the agenda and not defending its members militarily, but managing humanitarian crises. If NATO were to update its strategic concept today, it should refocus on its primary purpose: ensuring the security and defense of its member states through credible military capability. While contemporary matters are important global issues, they jeopardize the coherence of the alliance's core mission and stretch its resources and strategic clarity.
Nowadays, NATO depends a lot on the United States. The US provides most of the military power of the alliance, helping through technology and intelligence. The American defense spend has historically been one of the highest, spending more than most of the other allies. In addition, many European countries buy their weapons from the US, increasing their dependence, and the top NATO commander is always American.
Why is this a problem? This situation creates different problems. The dependence on the US gives them a dominant role controlling and limiting Europe's independence. The US influences other states by trying to pressure them to follow its priorities. Moreover, if the US ever decides to reduce its presence in Europe, there could be harmful consequences for NATO members, who will lose its key supporter.
And how it can be solved. For 2030, NATO should aim to become more independent and responsible for its own security, making the European role stronger and developing their capabilities to defend itself if necessary. European countries and Canada should create a stronger pillar inside of NATO, strengthening their defense industries and investing together in technology. This doesn't mean stepping away from the United States or from NATO. A more capable Europe and Canada would make the alliance stronger. Coordination between the European Union and NATO should be improved, since they often share the same threats, and they should also cooperate. This would make the alliance more balanced, credible, and better prepared for the future. NATO has always adapted, but it must stay focused on its main mission, defending its members. NATO's success will depend not on how far it spreads, but on how strong it stands. For 2030, the alliance should return to the basics. Collective defense, unity, and a stronger European role will ensure that NATO remains key in transatlantic security. Going back to basics means being united, credible, and ready.